I'm Megan Maggi, joined by Charles Eggleston, U.S. Army veteran who served in Iraq. We're at the Military Order of the Purple Heart Convention in Norfolk, Virginia. Charles, thank you for being with me today.
Thank you.
Let's start with the beginning. Where were you born and raised?
I'm a Richmond boy, so I'm born in Richmond, Virginia.
Okay. Is there a legacy of Army service or military service in your family?
It's a legacy of military service. I had Navy as well as Army in my family.
Was that an inspiration for you serving?
What was inspiration in me serving is my father was in Vietnam, and his father was in World War II, and I used to play with G.I. Joe as a kid growing up. So I always wanted to be like the G.I. Joe. I wanted to be this big bag, green little monster that I used to play with that was cool. Back then, those were only real toys you wanted to play with, not like now, you know.
How did that influence your growing up, having a father and a grandfather who had served in combat?
I guess it did, because you're used to a regimented way of life. But my father, even though he was military, you never knew he was military because he was just so cool and smooth, you know. And even though I seen my grandfather, but he passed when I was a little kid, pretty much. So it was a good exchange. It was a great knowledge base, and it just made me feel proud once I became older of being a veteran.
And when did you join the Army?
Joined the Army in the late 90s, and everything else became history.
Where did you serve at first?
My first service was at Fort Bragg. Left Fort Bragg for a bit, came to Fort Meade, left Fort Meade for a bit, went to Germany. I started really having fun, learning to surf the world, as they say. Then from Germany, I went to Central America. So I was one of those good soldiers that was doing some good operations down in Guatemala, to say the least. You know, so we was basically helping the locals and, you know, with the way of life.
Eventually, you served in Iraq.
Yeah.
How many tours did you do in Iraq?
2.5 tours.
What was that like?
The first day I came, you know, we trained for going into what they call the beast, that box, the sun. Yeah, but I never imagined it being as hot as it was when I first got there. I still remember the first night I got into Iraq. It was 2 o'clock in the morning when we landed. And I'm getting off the plane. I'm like, man, the exhaust is still hitting us. You know, when they gonna turn off the engines? And the guy said, that's not the engines. That plane, you walked away from the exhaust. You walked in front of the plane. That's the temperature. I said, what's the temperature now? He said, it's about 128 right now. It's a cool day. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. No sun, no nothing, just hot. And I said, this is a cool day? He said, yeah, you'll get used to it. Your body it'll get good with it in probably about 2 days. The guy was joking around. It took my body about 30 days to get used to it, to the point that when I got back as an injured soldier from Iraq, I was riding around in the car this time of year. It was 100 degrees in the car, and I just I never turned the air conditioner on because it was just freezing. I just turned the air on. And everybody in the car with me just losing their mind going, what's your problem? I'm like, I'm feeling all right, because I was so acclimatized to 120 and above temperature every day. And I'm wearing uniform, I'm wearing body protection and all this. So you sweat profusely at first, and then later on you just feel a little damp, you know, after your body acclimatized to this.
That's something you definitely don't think about. Definitely haven't thought about before.
Yeah, so when I hear folks talk about how hot it is outside, I'm like, yeah, I've seen hotter days, you know.
To say the least. Talk a bit about your role while you were in Iraq.
We manage what they call hot zones. So we did some, I guess, if a convoy came under attack, were the safe teams that go in and actually partake in the non-lines and the evacs and all that, make sure the area is stabilized. make sure the unfriendlies are not being so unfriendly at that time. So we make sure we send out the force, the stabilized area, so we can get our guys out of the hot area at the point. And we did a lot of different missions, humanitarian missions, such as the schools, the water, power plants, etc. The kids used to just love us when we came in because we always come in with bags of candy. And one thing about kids around the world, regardless where you're at, in Central, South America, Eastern Europe, or whatever the case is, they love candy. So we used to toss the little lollipops to them, and they enjoyed us for the moment, or they enjoyed the soldiers, the good soldiers.
So you worked a bit with the local population?
Absolutely. We was kind of like embedded with the locals, so we become more of a friend. We have a fight, we have a desire we have to attain. We're there, to manage.
And you said 2.5 tours in Iraq?
Right.
Tell me a bit about the second tour. That was when you were wounded, or that was?
I was wounded in both, but the first tour, I go there in 2003. I was what they call Base Oha, which is Sincan. That's where the ambassador lives. That's where all top brass live. We was in the what they call the palace, the one you saw on television where they had the heads going around it. And they took the heads off at some point. That's where I used to live at. When I sleep at night, temperatures where I used to sleep at is about 170 degrees, 160 degrees. We slept in the basement of the palace, and we just had fans blowing as air, circulation air. It's so hot. But it was a place of cover, it's a place of protection. It's inside the green zone, and we ran operations protecting Ambassador Burma and other high officials that's coming in. Got injured in July on a convoy. Don't know how, just came out of nowhere, which I thought was a friendly zone, but things changed at a split of a moment. Second time I was up in Mosul, Telfar, Iraq. As I say, we did protection and we ran special missions anywhere from Fallujah all the way up to what they call the Beast, which is Erbil, which is just, look at this place. You wouldn't even think you was in Iraq. You'd think you was in Pennsylvania, it's so green. Watermelons, all kinds of great trees and all that good stuff growing. In the summertime, it's just pristine. Prettiest people I've ever met were all through Iraq. They were like us, pretty much. Just had a whole different culture. It was like no other place in the Middle East, pretty much. And we had chances to be in other places such as Kuwait, Qatar, Saudi Arabia. It was totally different. It made you feel like you was in probably Miami. The culture, other than it's a different culture. Got injured several times off of Route Tampa in that part of the region, between basically Mosul, because the big fight was in Mosul and Telfar. It was tracking down some big top operative, and we caught up with one. And basically, the last time I got hit, we got caught in the middle of an ambush, and things went wrong. So that's the spin on that part of the injuries. Going forward is once I was evacuated out of Iraq and finally made it back to the mainland and landed at Walter Reed.
So you were immediately evacuated out of Iraq to Walter Reed?
Oh
You
yeah,
weren't
yeah,
treated
yeah.
there at all?
I had a stint in between, but once I finally, started going through the treatment at Walter Reed, then that's when a whole different symbolism of basically who I am, who we are, what we're doing, and why came on board. And that was the first steps on, I just felt like I was lost as a wounded veteran. Well, as a wounded warrior at the time, because I'm not yet a veteran. I'm still in the military. I was going through so many surgeries. I was going through so much treatment that it basically made you feel like a person on the outside looking in every day when you look at yourself. we all felt like zombies because we're being so heavily medicated for our injuries. And as I told others, I was going through so many surgeries at the time that it just, you can kind of feel that it's repetition, and you can basically make the call for your own surgery. Docs would laugh at me because I said, hey, I'm gonna need a certain type of adjective. Well, I need to take a certain kind of pill as I'm coming out this next surgery. I'm telling you that so I won't get sick. And they go, how you know? I just had 2 surgeries within the last week. And they would look at the chart and go, oh yeah, you should know. So it became repetitious, which is not good because I never knew the stress and strain that was actually concurring on my own body at the time. And I felt like at a point, I was trying to figure out what is the unknown at this point. The unknown was PTS, is what they call PTSD. And I was definitely on top of the D side of it. It was out of control because the monsters of the night would hit me when I daydream, more so than at nighttime. I would wake up, boom, boom, boom. I'm inside of a firefight and I'm trying to figure out what's going on. And someone would say, hey, they shake me and I'm back here. I couldn't figure out what's going on because it wasn't explained to me about the symptoms of PTS. It was so new in the war. Now we're talking about 2006, 2007. All right, so it's very new with the PTS side of it. We're yet to gravitate to PTSD. And then the TBI, the traumatic brain injury, because my face was shattered on this side, started coming in because I was wondering why I was having so many headaches and why when I'm talking to people sometimes, my visual will go in 2 opposite directions, that to the point that I felt goofy. I just started putting my hands over one eye because I felt like my eyes was actually turning in front of the person, but I don't know what was going on. I couldn't figure that part out. Till one day, a Vietnam veteran, I started talking to a Vietnam veteran like, I'm tired of this because I just feel like I want to pull the plug on this whole deal. He asked me what's going on. I said, man, I'm sick of this. He said, I hear what you're saying, but what's going on? I said, I'm tired of being poked and prodded all the time. I'm tired of feeling like I'm not a regular person. And I feel like everyone's talking down to me. That was a product of the TBI combined with the PTSD that's out of control, that was working as a bad mechanism of negativity on myself. That's when my first stages of suicide. When I started just saying, I go back to my room at the Malone house, and when I was supposed to be taking 1 morphine, 1 Dilaudid, 1 Percocet, and 1 Oxy, I was pumping 4 or 5 of those. And then sometime I try to take a half a bottle to put myself to sleep for good. I want to get rid of the madness. And this individual's from the Purple Heart. And it was like, dude, you're a Purple Heart veteran, or you're a Purple Heart soldier, because I was U.S. Army, and and that's where he talked to me. He talked to me like a person. No one was talking to us like a person. They talked to us like we was little kids or like we was brain dead. And in a sense, I probably was brain dead, because when they analyzed me then, they said I was probably working on the mechanism of a 1st grade, maybe kindergarten, because my brain had been scrambled pretty much, and they understand that. And we're gonna work towards that. So as I was stating, the basic problems of my PTS and TBI was getting to me so much that once this Vietnam Purple Heart recipient, who I never knew was a Vietnam Purple Heart recipient, I just looked at him as an old man. They used to call him the cane man. It was a Marine cane man. They used to get canes because I was on canes and in a wheelchair at that time. Because when I got hit, it tore everything up from the shoulder blades down. So I was basically using, which I hate, canes and wheelchair. Most of the time I was in a wheelchair. He was like, it gets better. You gotta just heal. You gotta start enjoying. I gotta figure out some things for you to do. I'm sitting there going, things to do, what do you mean by that? That makes no absolute sense. There's no resolve to things to do when you're an injured person. And it absolutely was. That was the start of my rehab, my personal rehab. And like I said, that individual was He was connected with the military of the Purple Heart. He was a good guy. And he was what they call one of these hidden giants. So he was able to put me in a whole different place, which got me into yoga, got me into acupuncture. It got me into playing my Zing, meditation. So with things like that going on, all the positive, and going into what they call contemporary or Eastern medicine, you couldn't lose. So he made things better. But it's always a light at the end of the tunnel. But it seemed like as that light was beginning to shine, something else was going on, because I was caught in the middle of what they call a scandal, the Walter Reed scandal, when they had us tucked away, basically in an abandoned building, all the warriors. If you was wounded in combat, they put you in basically a special building just for the wounded warriors at the time, or the injured service persons, which was primarily Army, because for some reason Navy kept all their guys, Marines kept all their guys at Bethesda. They wouldn't allow them to stay in that facility. And we kind of found out later on that building that we thought we was sleeping in dust or dirt and just dirty, vents, was actually black mold and fungus. So that was one of the reasons that I was probably going through a lot of surgeries, and they was cutting pieces away and repairing other pieces, because I was breathing in those spores and bacteria and whatever else that was floating in the air.
When was that they discovered?
That was 2000. Well, it started from the time I got in there, 2006, but the scandal blew up big time, 2007. And then that's when I really found out who's who. I found out what organization backs you up. Who was probably one of the first organizations that came out and said, hey, we got you. And that's who I found out who was who when it came to legislative persons, because I reached out to my congressman 6 months deep. Before then, they said, hey, Albert Wynn, I'm having a problem with the facilities over here. They seem like they treat us like we're not even human. They talk down to us, but it's basically 4 of us to a room at that time. And it's a 2-man room. We call them the slums. So we lived in the ghetto. That's what we was a pick. We going to Starlock 13. We felt like, POWs inside of our own facility, because we felt like we was being treated as such for being wounded. So most of us felt like we was being persecuted for getting injured in combat, which is not the right feeling to have.
No, especially when you're recovering.
You're trying to recover.
Right. The gentleman that you spoke with, the Vietnam vet who is also connected with the Purple Heart, is that how you got connected with the Military Order of the Purple Heart?
It was one of the ways I got connected with the Purple Heart, but it's not the exact way I got connected to the Purple Heart. The way I got connected to the Purple Heart, when I was receiving my Purple Heart, when they was going through the ceremony, a Korean War veteran caught me coming off the actual stage. And he said, we'd like to make you a member, official member of the Military of the Purple Heart. And I'm like, yeah, we give clothes to the Purple Heart. He said, no, you're a Purple Heart recipient. We'd like to make you a member. I was like, yeah, okay. Yeah, okay. Never knew the magnitude of what it would take me, how much it would amplify my life, how much it would give me a chance to give back to others, and how much I could be a voice for those who fall 6 months and more behind me. And it gave me a chance to be me again. I was able to be a part of myself that I used to be. I had lost me. They brought me back to the playing field, and for that I was ever grateful. His name was Ransom Jordan. He was a Korea War double Purple Heart recipient veteran.
Talk about the work you've done with the Military Order of the Purple Heart.
With the Military Order of the Purple Heart, I probably was the first commander, became the commander of the state of Maryland. I think I was one of the first commanders that dedicated the services of Maryland, Military Order of the Purple Heart, as well as the National Purple Heart, to rehabbing and housing our wounded and our female veterans I put emphasis on the female veterans population because most of the time, when you get a female veteran that's homeless, you get her and family members. You found a homeless male veteran, you basically just get that male veteran and probably a couple of his homeboys. But I was noticing one day when I saw a friend of mine that was at Walter Reed with me, and I didn't know they had already discharged out of Walter Reed, and I'm still a soldier at Walter Reed. And I saw her downtown. I saw her getting out of a car. I was like, hey, what's going on? She was like, yeah, we're going to wash up. And I saw a little kid with him. I'm like, what you mean you're going to wash up? You still living in the Malone house? She said, no, they kicked me out 2 weeks ago. They said I was done. And I said, all right, so where you living at now? She said, right here in my car. VA haven't taken care of me, and the Army dropped me. Couldn't find out that one system had stopped. The seamless transition never connected to pieces. It was on you, a wounded person that could be TBI, that informed the VA that now I'm on your radar. DOD just dropped you, never informed the VA side to pick up the pieces. So be it. We started programs, and we started what they call food marches and fundraisers that help female veterans, specifically, and family. So I was proud of that accomplishment. When it came to the service part, I was able to connect with more of my OEF partners, male and female, warfighters, on helping them with their ratings for the VA, because these are rating for life. Even though it seemed like once the word got around, I got more Vietnam and Korean War veterans than I did OEF. I couldn't figure it out. But I was able to help and amplify the message when it came to the rating. And I was just proud to give them the proper rating, or help them get the proper rating. So that's what the Purple Heart basically gave me the aptitude to accomplish.
That's important work. Definitely.
Yeah, it is. It's your life saving another life. Probably basically giving back to the community in more points than you can imagine.
How has the organization helped you heal?
Helped me heal a lot by being around what they say more of my kind. If these guys who have been injured in wars before can manage, who am I not to be one of these individuals that should be able to manage? They gave me the teaching tools on how to teach my fellow man and woman, as well as the generations to come. Because I don't think this is the last war, but we'll be a great step forward for those coming in to the folds. And believe me, if you left it up to me, I would love nothing better to not see another new Purple Hearter. But I know for a fact that won't be the case.
Charles, you've served our nation for some time now in more ways than one. When you think about your service to our nation, what are you most proud of?
Just proud of being American. Just proud of organizations such as the Purple Heart. Just proud of just good people. Matter of fact, I'm proud of the American people, because our greatest patriots are those who give back to those who can't fight for themselves. And most of those are non-veteran. Most of those are just the average Joe that probably wish they done military, but they had a greater calling. So just for that attitude, I tip my hat to any of those guys, because they are great Americans and they are true patriots. Those are the fabric of our generation and generations before.
Charles, thank you for talking with me today. Thank you for your service. It's been an honor to talk with you at the Military Order of the Purple Heart Convention here in Norfolk. I'm Megan Maggi. This is Veterans Chronicles.
Thanks.